Hi, everyone. My name is Chow, and I'll be the technical manager for this session, Integrating Gender and Nutrition in Agriculture Experiences from the IGNITE project, chaired by Mary Kate Cartmill. Thank you for taking part in ANH 2024, and we look forward to a robust and interactive session today. Thank you so much, and I'm going to pass it on to Mary Kate now.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. I am very excited to welcome you to today's Learning Lab. My name is Mary Kate Cartmill. I am an Associate Manager of Food Systems and Nutrition at Tanager. And it is my pleasure to help facilitate this interactive session on integrating gender and nutrition in agriculture, lessons from our IGNITE project. Throughout the session today, I will be joined by a few of my Tanager colleagues, as well as representatives of our IGNITE partner institutions, who I will introduce in just a moment. All right, so now I'll go ahead and introduce our presenters for this session. First, we have Morgan Mercer, our Managing Director of Social Systems at Tanager, based in the US. We have Maureen Munjua, our team leader for Tanager, based in Kenya. We have Dr. Catherine Macharia-Mutier, our deputy team leader for Tanager, also based in Kenya. I'm happy to welcome Olive Muthamya, our nutrition expert for Tanager, based in Kenya. Dr. Mary Thamari, our gender expert, also based in Kenya. And then it's a pleasure to welcome Hibieta Tesfaye, our senior gender consultant for one of our local service providers, Fair and Sustainable, based in Addis in Ethiopia. And also Dr. Cecilia Limera, Program Officer and Nutrition Lead for the African Agriculture Technology Foundation, based in Kenya. So with that, I will pass over the presentation to our team leader, Maureen. Maureen, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Mary Kate, and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be hosting you today. Mary Kate, if you can move the slides a bit. To the next slide. So in this session, the outline of the webinar today, I'll start us off with a brief overview of the IGNITE project. And then Catherine will take us through briefly on the IGNITE diagnostic process. It is a tool that we have used to assess capacity of institutions. And then we'll go out into two breakout rooms where we want you to experience the diagnostic tool and the diagnostic process in how we assess institutional capacity for gender and nutrition. And then we'll come back and do a Q&A out of the sessions based on the experiences that you have. And then Morgan will lead us on a fireside chat, a conversation to just learn on the experiences that our client, AATF, and our local service provider, FNS, have had working with us for the last 6 years, and then we'll close the session. So we look forward to an engaging session. Feel free to come off mute, engage, and participate. So the session objectives, we do have 2 session objectives to really inform practice and policy. So really looking at understanding IGNITE technical assistance and how it's informed policy and practice for different partners, policymakers, and how we have made the case for integration of gender and nutrition within agriculture. And then 2 is to showcase some tools and resources. So in this webinar, we will focus on the diagnostic tool for you to experience and use it in assessing an institution, but to also be able to shape what technical services institutions would require in their journey of integrating gender and nutrition. Next slide. So to kick us off, I'll provide a brief overview of IGNITE. IGNITE stands for Impacting Gender and Nutrition through Innovative Technical Exchange in Agriculture. It's been a 6-year program implemented with Tanager in the lead, and we have had 2 learning partners, Laterite and 60 Decibels, that have supported some of the research in the program. For whom has this program been designed for? We have worked with private sector institutions, development partners, NGOs, government and government agencies across 4 different countries, Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Tanzania. Those have been the countries of focus. And as part of our sustainability, we have also built the capacity of local service providers who are, one of them, Fair Sustainable, is represented here today. But we have worked across the 6 years with 5 local service providers, built their capacity to be able to deliver gender and nutrition TA. And that's Pan Africa in Burkina Faso, Nafaka Kilimo in Tanzania, Fair and Sustainable Consulting in Ethiopia, APSFD in Burkina Faso, and CGE Africa in Nigeria. Next slide. And this is a lovely team that has delivered the technical support to African agriculture institutions. This team it's a team of about 22 based across different geographies, Kenya, Tanzania, Burkina Faso, as well as the United States of America. So yeah, it's a diverse team of gender, nutrition, M&E, research, organizational development experts, as well as our team of finance and operations team supporting the program. So Ignite as a program, the vision and really the goal of the project is to see increased quality, effectiveness, and efficiency and reach of nutrition and gender equality outcomes by African agriculture institutions through the agriculture investments that they make. So we really look to strengthen the capacity of institutions and their ability to integrate gender and nutrition within their work. The objectives of the program and why we do this and how we do it. One is focusing on the capacity of the African institutions. That's looking at their systems, their processes, their structures, their culture as an institution, and also just their way of doing business. Basically looking at an institutional DNA and how does gender and nutrition present itself as priorities within an institution. And then 2 is really building out evidence by identifying the models that move the pin for gender and nutrition. We know there's been a lot of investments within the sector on gender equality and improving nutrition, but what actually really works, what doesn't. So through research, we have been able to identify models that then demonstrate that what are things that work to move the pin and to really be able to start seeing women's empowerment within the agriculture sector, but also increasing the equitable consumption of safe and affordable nutritious diets. And then lastly, and what we call our sustainability objective, is to be able to cultivate and sustain a network of local service providers. I think one big question when we started was, we want to do gender and nutrition work, but we don't know the how to. And the service provision in itself was a gap when we came into the market. So we have worked to identify these local service providers to be able to build their capacity, for greater reach of the TA services that we offer. Next slide. So what is the value proposition that Tanager brings? Tanager's value proposition is really at that intersection point. When you think about food systems, when you think about the three circles that you see there: agriculture programming, gender programming, and nutrition sensitive programming. What we are bringing to stakeholders in the sector is that with the African agriculture institutions, we are able to support them to ensure that their investments in agriculture are also delivering on nutrition outcomes, but also gender outcomes. So we really work at that intersection point of those 3 nodes. But sometimes you will find that clients are more in nutrition programming and agriculture, and we also are able to support them to really be able to deliver on their nutrition outcomes and impact, but also seeing how you weave in gender alongside their core work. So we start to see institutions looking at agriculture programming not just as agriculture productivity, but how are we thinking about delivering on nutrition? How are we thinking about the farmer as a producer, but also a consumer? How are we thinking about the different gender lens within the sector, what are preferences for women and men within the sector. So think about a consumer as well. So it's across the food systems that that we have been able to work with the clients that we have worked with. Next slide, please. So when we think about clients in Ignite, these are the African agriculture institutions that we are providing support to. And we really see them as clients because we are providing a service. And we ask ourselves, who is an ideal client for Ignite? An ideal client for Ignite, like in any other business, has to be, mission aligned with, they have the interest and the commitment to commit resources, to commit staff, to commit budgets to this kind of work and to really be able to support them. But we also want to focus on African-based and institutions operating within the African space. But also we are looking at institutions that have scale and influence, institutions that are an example in the industry that are able to, if we work with one institution, they probably have a big geography footprint as well. So scale and influence is also a factor that we really consider when we are thinking about different institutions that we can work with. But primarily, you have to really want to do gender and nutrition and be willing and open to work with us in the long term as well. So the process starts off with a scoping, using an intake form. We really look at these criteria, knowing our customer or knowing our client, and being able to identify big technical areas that they have an interest to engage with Ignite on when it comes to gender and nutrition support. That's a point where we have a go, no go. If we are not seeing the commitment in terms of, will we have a staff to actually work with? Are you willing to set aside budgets to support the work that we will do and the recommendations that will come out of the technical assistance? So after we have a go, we will develop an MOU, and at the scoping, we are able to identify how long we can work with a client, and that technical support can be between a year and clients we've worked with for 5 years. So it can range within that space, and that's all articulated in the MOU. And then the diagnostic is a step where we now go technical. It's an in-depth technical assessment, basically looking at what are you as an institution, what have you been doing, what are you doing well, but what are areas we can improve on. So we always go in and it's a very collaborative process with a client. And Catherine will be able to walk us through a bit more in depth about the diagnostic process, and hopefully we also experience it. But this diagnostic allows us to then build scopes of works that we can work with the client within that MOU period that we define with them. And then we go into action planning and implementation, always learning, and it's a cyclic implementation, and action planning is very cyclic, because once scopes of work are over, what have we learned? What are additional areas we are seeing for support? And then we will exit at the end of the engagement. So currently we are in a phase of exits with a lot of the engagements that we've had over time. Next slide. So these are the current active engagements in 2024, but overall to date, Ignite has worked with 35 institutions. 20 of these have been long-term, meaning we've worked with them for between 3 to 5 years, and are distributed. We have about 45% of those have been private sector, 45% have been development partners, and about 10% have been government and government agencies. The nature of support has also varied between institutional support, where we're really strengthening systems and structures and thinking about processes and policies and strategies, and then programmatic, where an institution comes to us, but they have a specific program that they're implementing and they want specific support on that program. So intervention support, a lot of M&E support as well has also gotten there. And then also these clients, as I said, as we are looking at scale and influence, we've been able to just not target the 4 countries that we initially envisioned. We have gone to about 18 countries across Africa. Next slide. So in terms of TA and service offering that we have developed with Ignite, we really think about them in sort of three categories. We think about tools, policies, and plans, and really strategies. And then we think about training and sensitization as another category, and then monitoring systems, and also research also falls within that third bucket. But across this, we actually provide implementation support where we work with the client. So TA we have seen is it's not a touch and go, and we really think about it as walking the journey with our clients, and that's what we really think about when we say implementation support. So reflecting on the broader, food systems and domains where you think about gender minimum standards, where you're really thinking about integrating gender and nutrition, these three categories really touch on all the points and entry points that we can think about when we are thinking about mainstreaming gender and improving nutrition within institutions and across programs. And because we have those diverse clients, we have worked at policy level, we have worked at production level, we have worked at supply level, we have worked at consumption. So really thinking about the diversity of the skills and capacities that any institution that's working across different nodes in the food systems is able to actually utilize and optimize their own nutrition and gender outcomes in their institution. So to just give you a flavor of what that has looked like, but we will hopefully experience that in the different sessions as well. Is in Nigeria, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe, we have supported 3 poultry companies that are active in building the supply chain in terms of hatcheries, but also the consumption end of encouraging communities to consume chicken and egg. And these companies, while they're different companies, the support has ranged from building the capacity of their sales staff and marketing staff and extension staff to really think about gender and nutrition when they're doing sales and marketing, but also when they're doing extension, but also developing social behavior change strategies and campaigns for these companies to be able to then activate the consumption side of their businesses. So it makes a business sense for these companies to then really think about what are gender considerations I need to have when I am thinking about consumption of egg, what taboos are around those that we really need to think about, and then working with them to really be able to implement different strategies for different consumer groups. So that's just one example of how we've provided support. And I think at this point, I will hand it over to Catherine, who will be able to take us through the diagnostic approach and the tool itself. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maureen, and good to have all of you here. So today we're going to look a little further into one of the tools that we have developed within Ignite, plus many other tools that we have developed. This has been one of the tools that we work with over the 5 years. Over the 5-6 years that we've worked with the clients, but most importantly, using it at the very beginning when we are engaging the clients so that then we can be able to support them in the technical assistance. Next slide, Mary Kate. So basically, my session will just introduce the approach that we use, what we call the Ignite diagnostic approach. After that, I will show briefly through the breakout rooms, we'd also be able to see how this diagnostic and the tool can be used to identify areas of support to institutions so that then these ag or agriculture institutions can be able to integrate gender and nutrition, both in their way of doing business, but also in their programming. Next slide. The IGNITE diagnostic is actually adapted from the minimum standards for mainstreaming gender equality. Those of you who might be in the gender circles, you might already know about these standards around gender equality. And within IGNITE, of course, based on the fact that we wanted to be able to work with the institutions, both in gender and in nutrition, we adapted this tool to cater for both gender and nutrition. However, we are very, very cognizant that it does not always apply the same way when you're thinking about nutrition-sensitive agriculture and when you're thinking about gender. And some of the key differences could be at the institutional level, while there could be some things that you apply at the institutional level, others may be more applicable at the programmatic level. And so gender and nutrition plays out differently when you're working with these institutions. But basically, the diagnostic tool has about 7 domains, what we call domains. And we have the first domain that basically deals with policies at the institutional level, but also the approaches that the institutions use in their programming for nutrition-sensitive agriculture. So at that point, we'll be looking at what are the policies, what are their strategies existing, what is the leadership structure, how is design of work done at that level. And if there are any areas that we could provide TA, then we work on that domain. Our second domain looks at the organizational culture and capacity. And this is mainly staff focused. As you had Maureen mention earlier, we do a lot of trainings to the staff based in these agricultural institutions, or our clients as we call them. And we will, during the diagnostic, what we are looking at is the skills that exist within the institutions, opportunities for development in the skills around gender and nutrition, also what tools they could be using that speak to gender and nutrition. So there are a lot of, about 9 areas that we look at culture and capacity. And I'm glad to note that in our breakout rooms, we shall concentrate on domain 1 and domain 2. So the policy and then culture and capacity. So even as we go through the domains, you can get ready to join one of those 2 domains in the breakout room so that you can explore it further. Of course, then we have the other 5 domains. The third domain on budget. We recognize that without budgets in institutions, either at the design level or at the management level, it's gonna be very difficult to be able to integrate gender and nutrition, or anything else for that matter. And so for the diagnostic, we look at what budgets exist that speak to gender. Is it in data collection? Is it in programming? Is it in training? So all budgets that could contribute to gender and nutrition integration. Of course, under this domain, we have a training on gender responsive budgeting as one of the products that come under that domain. But we also work with the finance team. So when we go to the institution, we are not just looking at the technical people, we are also working with the finance managers. And we've sat with board, and we have had an opportunity to work with our clients to make presentations to their board for allocation of resources, so that then they are able to have more work on gender and nutrition. The fourth and the fifth one are very closely related because it's around data. So how is evidence collected? In our M&E, in the institution's M&E system, are there indicators that speak to gender work that they are doing, or the nutrition work they are doing? And we are very particular that it's not just, disaggregating gender by sex, male, female, but going a little further into exploring issues that affect women's empowerment, for example, in agriculture, decision-making around the household. But then also from a nutrition side, we help the institutions to move away just from productivity of whatever it is they are promoting, but also looking at other indicators that speak to diet, knowing very well that while we are good in agriculture, until that food is consumed and until that food is healthy, then there is a gap. So 4 and 5 is really about data, how data is collected, how it's analyzed, and how it is also used. Very important how that data circles back for in the institutions for design, but also how it's shared across the different programs. One of the things we are aware of, most of these ag institutions, they also have different programs. And sometimes you want to just keep nutrition or gender into one program, but how do you share the data that you're getting even from one program to the rest of the institution? The sixth domain that we look at is how the institutions assess and mitigate risks, especially so both at the institutional level. So at the institutional level, you're looking at the staff HR policies, for example, that speaks to workplace harassment, issues to do with, sexual harassment, how reporting is done, but also in the programmatic level, as the institutions work in that space, are they cognizant of the risks that could happen to the beneficiaries that they are working with? Do they have risk registers, for example? And what is it they're doing? What partnerships, for example, are they forging to be able to reduce the risks that come with the work that they do? So again, an interesting space there for assessing and mitigating risks. And then finally, how do the institutions account for what they do? And this accountability is, I would say, it's also very closely related to partnerships at the global level, partnerships with the right partners and right institutions, so that then you're able to be accountable to what you're doing, what you're tracking, how you're reporting, but also accountability from within. When you go to the board, for example, is it just about everything else except data or except information that comes from gender and nutrition? So having institutions walk through this journey, it's usually an interesting process. But when we do then the diagnostic at the end, as you will have seen in the previous slides, we really wanting to see how is gender and nutrition integrated. So for example, are you so good in gender that you've forgotten nutrition, or the other way around? And so how can we develop both spaces? And noting that for ag institution, we understand that agriculture will be the commodate, but there's an opportunity to work with their beneficiaries, and gender issues come along, working with their beneficiaries, not just as producers, but also as consumers. And so then the whole aspect of nutrition comes in, both for the household and the farmer. Next slide, maybe. So in the diagnostic, what we do, we have about 4 steps, major steps that we follow. Once we have the initial scoping with the institution and we go in to do the diagnostic, we do document reviews, key documents that exist, ranging from the strategies, the corporate strategies that exist. It has gender or nutrition, for example, been mentioned anywhere in the corporate strategy. We want to be able to see that in their vision, in their mission. Is there anything around gender and nutrition? But also other documents, for example, their research reports that they might have done, any publications that are coming from these institutions that possibly could have had potential to speak to gender and nutrition, among other documents. So it's a whole age of documents, even the com side of things. How do they communicate? What is on their website? If I go to your website, do I see anything around gender or around nutrition? So that all is incorporated at the document review. Now, based on what we find from the reviews, we then do key informant interviews with staff ranging from senior management all the way to the field staff, just to understand whether they have a common level of agreement, or if there's an agreement into what we are finding or what the institution is saying in different aspects of gender and nutrition integration. Now, the data that we get from the document reviews and the interviews is analyzed, and from this we're able to make a draft report that we present to the client for discussion. And for the discussion, ordinarily would have, a meeting with the client and having shared the draft report and reflect on the findings coming out, but also reflect on the recommendations, because that is very critical for ownership, but also to help us in the action planning moving forward. Next slide. So once we have the data and in the report, this is just a sample of what you might find in a report. We just talked about the the 7 domains. Now, if you look at domain number 1, which was around policy and approaches, it has several subdomains. And the same applies to all the 7 domains that I've just talked about in the previous slides. So in the first domain, we have about 8 subdomains that we look at, and that's what you see in the first column. And what we do is that from the information we have had from the review and from the interviews, as the Ignite technical team, we actually sit and reflect on whether they actually meet the standards or whether they do not meet. So this is just an example of, a domain 1 from a client. So you find that different subdomains, some will meet, some will not meet the standards, but also very aware that some of the subdomains may not be applicable for or either gender or nutrition. In this case, we have a case where nutrition representation in leadership for our standards is not, a subdomain that is applicable. So once we have that data, what we see, and this is done from an Excel sheet. So although I'm sharing it in PowerPoint, in the breakout room, you might be able to see what happens at the back end. We get an institutional score for each of the domains. And this score ranges from 0 to 100%. And once we have that score, it's also categorized into a stage, which we call expanding or an advanced. And I'll speak to this very briefly in the next slide, Mary Kate. So again, in the report, this is just a snapshot of what could be happening in an institution. Now, the difference between this slide and the other one is that the table was only subdomains from domain 1, which then gives us the results that you see on the top row of nutrition and gender. But this particular slide gives a snapshot of all the 7 domains, and you see the color blue speaking to nutrition and gender. So from a nutshell, you might be able to tell that there are areas that are more developed for gender than for nutrition. But I think looking at this, we see that gender is more developed, or it's more institutionalized compared to nutrition in all the subdomains. So this gives a snapshot to the client to see, okay, this is how we are doing in gender, this is how we are doing in nutrition. At the bottom of the page, you will see as scoring that that I've just mentioned, that lands from 0 to 100%. So the first, between 0 and 25% is really what we call nascent. And nascent, again, is just showing that it's in the very early stages of development. For example, in this case, you see that for nutrition, they are very nascent in how they track results, how accountable they are, but also in the space of doing no harm. And data on gender, you can see it's very on the high end of being institutionalized. Next slide, maybe. So this is the definition of the 5 categories where we put clients, or where we look at the clients. The ideal is that we move every client from nascent, emergent, all the way to be institutionalized in the way they implement or the way they integrate gender and nutrition. Now, what we note is that during the TA process, it's not always that you need to move from nascent and jump all the way to institutionalization. But we know there's a process that happens. So you might find that at the nascent stages, the emergent stages, you're doing very basic things like trainings and having workshops for your staff. paying for your stuff. But as you move towards advanced and institutionalized, you start having business development that takes time, that takes more resources. You start having implementation of programs that are in gender and nutrition. And so again, in the scoring, you find that then the weight given to the different categories is really not equal, because we think and that when you're in an advanced stage, it takes more effort, it takes more time to be able to move from, for example, an 80 to 100%, which is really a real life experience, I think, even in where we are. So based on this, next slide, Mary, we will move to our breakout room so that then you are able to experience this. Okay. I hope you all have enjoyed interacting with the diagnostic tool, of course, within the limitation of time that is available, but also just having ideas coming from the teams. I was in the group breakout number 2, and I think as we're just closing, I mentioned I'll give one of our participants there an opportunity to just share their thoughts of what they think about the tool, the scoring. And if you allow me, I'll invite Gudrun just for a minute to just share something about his thoughts.
Okay. So we discussed about the dichotomous scale, basically like method standard or not. And somebody, I forgot your name, was it Cecilia, I think, also felt that maybe there should be like something halfway, because, you know, it's not always that clear cut, and some people already have done a little bit more than 0. And just to share some experience I had from I don't know, quite some numbers of years back, when we did some self-ranking of capacities of local government, where we used like a 5 kind of level scale, and we used the analogon of like growing a plant by saying like the first stage is like the seed sowing stage. There's no plant yet, so basically meaning nothing has been done. Apart from a little bit sewing maybe, which might be the attendance of that workshop. And then you have some sprouting going on, then you've got a little plant, at some stage there's a flower, and in the final stage you have a fruit. And it was meant to be a self-ranking tool, and we facilitated the process, but the local government colleagues, they had to assign themselves 4 also different categories of stuff where their capacity was. And we felt that we got much more honest answers from using that kind of scale and using the plant. So we actually had symbols there. We didn't even talk about like, oh, you haven't achieved anything, or oh, you're doing super great. And it was very, very easy for them. It was easier to admit they didn't do anything yet, because at least, you know, they were like seed sowing stage or something. So that might be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Starkamp. Thank you so much for your thoughts on that, among others who also raised similar suggestions. Let's hear from any question from the breakout 1 that you'd like us to discuss from the plenary.
Yeah, we were just actually closing out our discussions, just looking at the column for recommendations and saying that it becomes a very vital part of our TA delivery prescription. When you are working with a client, and there was a question that was asked, what if a client does not agree with the scoring? And again, our response is, out of our own experience, is that this is usually a collaborative exercise where the client kind of diagnoses themselves on what they really need and what they can do to strengthen and to promote gender nutrition sensitive work. So just to point that this is a very helpful exercise that helps our work, so that we don't hit in the darkness, but we hit specifically to where the need of the client is. based on recommendations and where they are at. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary. Any other participant with a question or a comment?
Yeah, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the exercise, and I actually wanted to just share my excitement about this tool, because this is one tool, even as a gender expert, you can actually use it to just audit the position of an organization in terms of how they are mainstreaming and integrating gender and nutrition in their programs, and have conversations with the leadership to actually say, hey, this is the status and these are the things that we can do. And I'm happy because at least I have the privilege of knowing that this is open access of the tool. So any person can actually access this tool and use it in any organization and actually say, we are using the Ignite tool to really give us the status of our position in integration of gender and nutrition in our program. So to me, this is a good tool. I've enjoyed the exercise, and I'm looking forward to using it more. Thank you. Over.
All right. Thank you, Doc. Yeah, so I think I would refer all of us within in the invite, you will see a detailed workbook, handbook that is, if you go to the link at the ANH Academy, you will see a link to the detailed handbook that speaks to this diagnostic process. So it would be maybe nice to just at your convenience to have a look at that, but to appreciate each one of you for having participated in the in the breakout rooms. So moving forward, we just want to invite the next team. I have my colleague Morgan, who will take us briefly to the next session on a panel discussion with some of the clients and the local service providers that we have worked with before. Morgan, over to you. Mary-Kate, you can move the slides.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. Hi, everyone. I know it's been a while since the introduction. So my name is Morgan Mercer, and I'm a managing director at Tanager, supporting the Ignite team. And I'm very happy to be here today, and even happier to get the opportunity to hear from two of our experts from Ignite's partners. And Cecilia and Hibiete, feel free to turn on your cameras if bandwidth allows. I'm going to quickly introduce them, and then the bulk of this session is going to be chatting with them about their experiences to provide a little bit more context for not only the diagnostic, but how some of these tools and services have been used in practice and what their reflections and experiences have been. So our first partner is Fair and Sustainable Consulting. They're an international consultancy company and social enterprise with offices in the Netherlands, Ethiopia, and Kenya. And they work with clients to support sustainable economic opportunities through core themes of responsible business, value chain development, and program management. So as mentioned, Fair and Sustainable was a partner of Ignite's as a local service provider, which means that they were actually providing technical assistance in gender and nutrition to Ignite clients. So I'm very happy to welcome Hibiete Tesfaye, who is a senior gender consultant on our panel today. So welcome, Hibiete. And next, oh, sorry, go ahead. Hi.
Thanks.
Yeah. And next, we are pleased to welcome our partner, African Agricultural Technology Foundation. So AATF is a not-for-profit, African-led organization that provides farmers in 24 countries in sub-Saharan Africa with practical technology solutions to overcome farm productivity constraints. And AATF was a client under the Ignite program. And I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Cecilia Limera, who is AATF's Program Officer and Nutrition Lead. So welcome, Cecilia.
Thank you, Morgan.
Yeah, so without further ado, I think everyone wants to hear from you guys. I'll get into the questions. So Cecilia, to you first. Can you talk about maybe why AATF was interested in Ignite TA services and what types of support you received? And we don't need to touch on everything, but maybe just the types of support that really stand out as filling an unmet need for AATF.
you so much, Morgan. Thank you for that question. So AITF has been working with Ignite program since 2018. And the reason why we approached Ignite, I'm sorry, I might keep interchanging between Ignite and Tanager. It still confuses me up to now. The reason why we approached Ignite is because in our institutional strategy, we had focus areas around nutrition that had been there for quite some time, but were not being implemented, and not because we didn't want to, but because the institution had not figured out clearly how to implement that and how to integrate nutrition into the programs. So nutrition was not being implemented, it was not being integrated at design stage or in existing programs. As for gender, the push was because we were doing something in gender then, including disaggregated data in our reports, in our studies, but we didn't have enough expertise on how to mainstream gender at institutional level as well as at program level. So, and also most of the donors that are funding AITF were insisting on the integration of gender into our work. So we needed a partner that had the expertise of how to do this at the institutional level as well as at the program level. Hence, the approach to Ignite to support us on these two components.
Great, great, thank you. And I hope some of this resonates with the audience, that, you know, maybe having sort of the institutional buy-in and leadership buy-in, but maybe not necessarily having the tools or resources for knowing how to carry it out, and also funding priorities influencing a need to kind of integrate these two things. Great. I want to put my next question to Hibiete. So FNS was a local service provider for Ignite, and can you talk a bit about your interest, your organization's interest in becoming a local service provider? And kind of a two-part question: what were some of the services that were most in demand or in need from some of the clients that you worked with?
Yes, why were we really interested to become a local service provider for Ignite? Is one is our first attraction was because of our commonalities when it comes to promoting gender, and also, you know, working on agriculture. We found out that our thematic areas are similar. So we work on agriculture, we work on promoting gender. So that was our first attraction. And the second one is we are ambitious team of experts, both at the Netherlands and the Africa team. So we wanted to grow, especially like from a nutrition perspective. From gender work, we feel that we are really good. We have several products, and we have a good reputation when it comes to gender. And we want to promote it. We want to, you know, excel it, and we want to really practice it not only in Ethiopia but at regional level. But in terms of like from growing perspective, we also felt that by collaborating with Ignite, then it will enhance our capacity, particularly from a nutrition perspective. Yeah. And the services, like once we became LSP, the services we participated are more on technical assistance to the identified clients, both like in Ethiopia in most cases. Then that is mostly training, you know, manual tool development, and also research. These are, yeah, the core thematic areas we've been engaged as an LSP.
Great. Thank you, Hibiete. So combination of strong alignment with what you're already doing and a desire to grow technically, expand geographically, and then sounds like some of the TA services around training, tools, et cetera, and research and development. So I want to ask this question to both of you, and you may approach it differently because of your roles on the project, but can you talk about what are some of the noticeable shifts that you've seen as a result of your work with Ignite? So that can either be within your own organization or as a result of providing services to clients. So what are kind of the shifts or the impacts that have stood out to you as a result of the kind of gender and nutrition technical assistance? And whoever wants to do it first, Cecilia or Hibiete.
Okay, I go. Okay, thank you. Let me see it like from different perspective. The benefits, like one is consultants' capacity enhancement because of the collaboration. Then different consultants were engaged, like gender, M&E, the food systems team. So then it's not only taking, assignment and delivering it to the clients, but we've been participating in different capacity enhancement engagements. We took trainings on M&E, nutrition, and also attended different workshops. That has helped us to really expand our knowledge, our skill perspective towards promoting gender and nutrition integration. And the other aspect is learning and experience sharing exposures, and working, with Ignite team was a plus by itself. It's a senior team. Then we have also benefited collaborating and co-creation with different engagements. So the enhancement, the capacity enhancement is really big. And that has also helped us, not only to deliver our assignments to Ignite clients, but as a consulting firm, we have different projects. We work with different local and international organizations. Then it has really helped us to also pass the knowledge we gain through our collaboration with Ignite to our other projects and engagements. So particularly promoting nutrition, and also when it comes to gender, different getting familiar with different tools, approach. That was really a plus. And the other big learning is Ignite works on like need-based, like the exercise we just did on diagnostic approach. So that has helped us, to develop hands-on tools that's really context specific, that's really needed for that particular client. That was really a huge learning for us to really take it to our other projects. The third one is it has also widened our network. As fair and sustainable, particularly in the case of Ethiopia office, we used to feel that we are really big, we have really that good network. But collaborating with Ignite has also given us really new, it has introduced us to new organizations that has also similar objectives with fair and sustainable. So we feel that we have also introduced to other organizations. Yeah, thank you, in short.
Thank you, Hibiete. Same question to you, Cecilia.
Yeah, working with Ignite has brought so much change to AITF as an organization. First of all, the kind of services we've been receiving from Ignite is mostly technical support as well as research. And the technical support, we've done quite an amount of work. Ignite has supported us in developing strategies for both gender and nutrition. We've had so many trainings for different categories, for different teams in AITF, the technical team, the management team, and the field team. And this has increased awareness, in the importance of integrating gender and nutrition into our programs. And also it has helped in understanding and appreciating the importance of gender at the institutional level, in that we've had a buy-in from management. And because of the involvement of Ignite with AATF, we've had a shift in budget allocation for both gender and nutrition. This is something that was not there before we started working with Ignite. So now we have budget allocation for gender activities. We have budget allocation for nutrition activities. We also have developed strategies that for both gender and nutrition that have been aligned to the institutional strategy. And right now, if you look at AATF's institutional strategy, it's very clear on what we want to do for nutrition, what we want to do for gender. And this is because of the involvement with Ignite. Another thing is that it has, this involvement has increased awareness in the institution generally for staff. Before we started integrating gender nutrition, most of the staff were not aware of the importance of these two components. But right now, everybody is very deliberate in ensuring that we integrate gender and nutrition activities at design stage of our proposals, as well as in our existing projects. For instance, right now we have activities that lead to integration of nutrition at the program level, at the field level. We have activities for field days that are now being incorporated into the usual activities for projects. But now we have specific activities for gender, specific activities for nutrition. You already know that AATF works, our focus is on technologies. And these technologies target smallholder farmers. And most of our clients are women farmers. From the history of agriculture in Africa, women farmers do a lot of work in agriculture. But now we are very deliberate in ensuring that our technologies target women and youth. For instance, we have technologies in mechanization. And because of a study that we did with Ignite, this study has led to making informed decisions in selecting the kind of technologies that serve both women and youth. This is something that been done in the past, but now because of this, we are very, very deliberate in selection of our technologies for our farmers, in selection of even trainings. We are very deliberate in how to target our trainings to serve, to speak to women farmers and the youth. And for nutrition, it's taken a very big step from the NSIS tool that Ignite introduced to us. We've been able to use this tool to select appropriate interventions for our different projects. Our projects cut across different value chains for different crops. Therefore, we needed such a tool to help us identify the appropriate interventions. And this tool has been very, very helpful to help us select interventions that are appropriate to these projects and that are not contradicting what the donor specifies. So I would say these are the main things that have worked for us as an organization. And from the tool that we just looked at some minutes ago, I'm very proud to say that we've moved from nascent, where we were during the diagnostic, and we just did a post-diagnostic assessment, which shows that we've moved to emergent and expanding on gender and nutrition. So that's honestly, that's a big step for us. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton to unpack there, a ton of tools mentioned. I see people dropping some of the links to the tools in the chat. But yeah, really great answers, and great to see that there is a combination of changes happening at both an institutional level as well as a programmatic level, and importantly, mindset shifts that are happening across both levels, and that ownership and buy-in and some of the awareness raising and kind of strategy supporting that is also changing. We have a very short amount of time. I feel like I could talk to you both, or would want to talk to you both for another hour if we had it. I want to end with one kind of last question. So we've talked a lot about, what's changed, what's been really great about this, but I think we can all recognize that there's probably still more we need to do. And so very shortly, Hibiete and Cecilia, maybe in a sentence or two, could you tell me, what do you see as still being some of the biggest challenges to do this work? If there were one or two priorities that still need to be focused on, or challenges to address, what would those be?
I wouldn't take them as really biggest challenge, but maybe something that we can consider is, to make the clients more accountable and also responsible for the services we want to, intend to provide. So that will make it more meaningful in a way that, then they commit in terms of time, resource, and then it will also allow us to have, some follow-up, and also to see how it's also impacting the outcome. So those kind of really arrangements, I would say, that's something I would recommend. But it's not really, it's well organized. The communication is very well managed. So yeah, I can't say that it's really a challenge, but something to really work on.
Great, thank you. Same question to you, Cecilia.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. So for a challenge that I've seen during the time we've been involved with Ignite is that as much as Ignite brings in these brilliant ideas and trainings on how to integrate and mainstream gender nutrition, but on the client side, I feel sometimes we fail on supporting Ignite, because I'll speak for AATF. When they came in, we didn't know how to integrate, and now they brought the knowledge on how to integrate, on how to mainstream. But then there's a challenge in integrating these great ideas or interventions in existing projects, because these projects were developed without a nutrition objective or a gender objective, and some of them are midway, maybe a 5-year project that is already 2.5 years. So bringing in interventions midway to integrate at that point is very difficult, because the challenge I've personally had is convincing the management of these projects to allocate some funds to nutrition activities. And it's not like they do not want to, but it is impossible, because donor-funded projects have different clear objectives, and you cannot just bring in your own objective and input and expect to get funded for that particular activity. So then this brings a challenge in that you're not able to implement these great ideas because you do not have the funding. So I do not know how or what Ignite can do around this. Maybe find a way of helping clients scope for donors who are interested in these areas, especially nutrition. Nutrition is a challenge. Gender is a bit more easier, because gender can be implemented in almost every project, but nutrition cannot be integrated in every project. It's some of the interventions are very specific to specific projects. So if there's a way that maybe the next phase can help clients in scoping for donors that are interested in these areas to help fund even smaller, very short surveys or short interventions to integrate in existing projects. That would be very helpful, and that would help organizations move forward in integrating gender and nutrition. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So accountability and the resourcing thing, and how to retrofit it to projects that are already existing. Great points. I want to thank both of you so much for your time and all of the work that you've done with the Ignite project. And want to thank you for your really thoughtful responses. I know we're nearing the end of our time together. So I want to mention kind of a few points before closing. Taking this session in whole, including the panel discussion just now, I think it's demonstrated there's a clear place for technical assistance provision in gender and nutrition amongst African agricultural institutions. So as illustrated from Javiette and Cecilia, we're seeing real demand for it and real impact around it when it's appropriately resourced, when there's leadership buy-in and commitment, and real strategy and measurement around it. And I think we've seen through the diagnostic and some of the kind of real experiences that every organization is going to have a different starting point and a different ending point. And it's about sort of the progress and the journey that's customized to the institution. I think increasingly, our team is very excited and energized by African agricultural institutions taking on lead roles as local service providers. So organizations like Fair and Sustainable really being sort of those leaders, providing the gender and nutrition TA themselves as we collectively build robust networks for gender and nutrition impact in agriculture across Africa. And as Cecilia kind of alluded to, we are going to be continuing this work across Africa with an increasing focus on continuing to scale and deepen the existing services, continuing to learn from clients what they most need and how to better customize it. And of course, kind of continuing to build a robust network of local service providers that can fully deliver these types of services over the next 5 years. So for those on the webinar here, please reach out to us if this session has sparked interest and you want to learn more or want to find ways to sort of engage. And lastly, I want to express my deep appreciation for this team, and that includes many of the faces you saw today. Some of those that were behind the scene, our great Tanager staff located in many different countries, and extending that to our many great partners, some of whom took valuable time out of their day jobs to make this presentation happen. And really more than that, the entire team that's really driven this work forward over the last 6 years. So sincerely, thank you. And thank you to our attendees for your attention and engagement. We hope the session was valuable as you carry this work forward in your own organization and roles. I think we have 4 minutes left, so I do want to hand it over. Maureen, as the team leader, do you have any closing remarks or anything you want to add prior to us wrapping up?
I think you said it all, but yeah, just to appreciate the team that has delivered this work, but also the participants today for really engaging with a tool that was strange. But yeah, we really take in a lot of the feedback that you provided, and we look forward to, connecting and engaging beyond this webinar. Thank you very much.